some fantastic weather down here on the golf.
Let's start off with this note, and this relates both politically and sports-wise. In general, when you see three boxes like this on cable news, you would think about politics. This is something, though, that we can agree about. And Kevin, I know that this is something that you fight against, is disinformation. There's all sorts of disinformation that comes out about all sorts of things in the news, and specifically, we talk baseball on this, and especially right now, as baseball is negotiating its return, find trusted news sources. For anything that you're looking for, find trusted sources who know what they're talking about. Kevin, let's begin with you. What's the latest that you're hearing with baseball?
The latest is the MLB folks are floating, but have not presented a plan for a 50-game season now. But they're not looking to prorate salaries. So players would essentially be fully paid for the season, for a shortened season, because the way the network deals are structured, most of the MLB money comes in for postseason play. So we're looking at 50 games and then a 14-team postseason as well, which allows the broadcast contracts to be fulfilled in most ways. It addresses player concerns about not wanting to have salaries cut, and it also gives lets the season end this fall before a potential second pandemic wave happens. So everyone seems to be, sort of like, well, okay. I think the issue is going to be, how do you base game performance off of 50 games if you're trying to renegotiate contracts for the future? But honestly, if that's what you're really thinking about, then maybe you should not be thinking about that at this time.
Yeah. Is baseball coming back, or is it not coming back? Bring it back, and then go on from all those other questions from here. Mick, there's this conversation that I've seen develop, a 50-game season or an 82-game season. What would this mean for records or anything like that? What do you think about the shortened season as a proposal?
Yeah, it's been frustrating. I mean, just kind of watching this all play itself out, because we don't know what's negotiating tactics and what is, kind of genuine, like, feelings, I mean, like, Tom Ricketts came out on CNBC last week, and he was talking about, without fans in the stands, their revenues are 70% lighter than they should be, or where they would, and I kind of thought it would be something like that, just because they do have so many people in the stands, and then, having sold corporate sales this offseason for the Smokies, and then having to return checks and stuff. Like, I can imagine that happening on a grand level with the Cubs, and then the Scott Boras, he's always seemed to have a comment, and he sent out an email to the players where he basically, said, well, why should we take a pay cut? We're bailing out Tom Ricketts because he's invested in the community around Wrigley, because I guess one of the proposals that was out there was that they wanted a revenue share, between the players based off of no fans, and it's just gotten pretty bitter, and it's like, and you read some of that, we're all taking a pay cut right now. I mean, it's hard for me to sit there and look at some of these negotiating tactics and feel for people that aren't willing to take a pay cut. Tom's taking a pay cut. He's losing 70%. I'm sitting here furloughed right now. You're not working, Kevin. I mean, I don't know how the site's doing, but without games, I mean, it's it's kind of hard to really be in this business. And when you hear people saying, well, we don't think that we should take the haircut, it bothers me. But I don't know. But the thing is, you talk about disinformation. Here's one agent that thinks that acts like he's the commissioner of baseball, but he's just one guy, represents like 70-some players, So I'm curious to see exactly what we got going on right now. 50 games, 7. I think that's a very, very weak proposal, but it may be the only way that they can work it out financially. And so if that's the case, I would take that over not having any baseball at all.
I think one of the concerns is also setting it for next year as well. I mean, if you play until, Christmas, past Thanksgiving, like the players proposed, you are also affecting next year as well. And I think there's a feeling among all the sports leagues to also not only address this year's issues, but be able to set up for next year. I mean, that's why the NBA wants to have their little tournament to decide this season now, and then the the following season would be delayed, but it would start on Christmas Day, which is when literally everyone else in the world assumes the NBA season starts, when that Knicks broadcast comes on at noon. So, there's some long-term thinking that needs to be done, and I think a 50-game season can address that issue fairly well. I mean, 80 games ending on September 27th also addressed that, but I think 114 games just – I'm not even sure the players totally wanted that as well.
No, push it too far, and then you expect a compromise down. The other said, okay, here's too low, bring us back up.
Right. And that's why I think there's some sincerity in MLB circles with the 50-game proposal. It's not perfect, but it does address a whole bunch of issues that everyone has raised. It sort of neutralizes Scott Boras, who, let's be honest, his role in all this is wanting to get his hands on every major league team's books, including revenue from outside the ballpark. And it drops that, and it preserves a team like the Cubs, which has invested not only in Wrigley Field but the neighborhood to keep that investment going. You were absolutely right to bring up Ricketts as an example of a guy who's actually done well in the neighborhood with these investments. Unless you really wanted to see that old McDonald's across from Wrigley Field survive.
I've been there before. Well, and what I feel like too is that Tom's done everything in his power to make it a better situation. He hasn't taken public funding. He's gone and made the neighborhood better. He's negotiated in great faith with people, and it's been tough, but to take care of the history of Wrigley, the game, the players, the people that work there. I've known him since he owned the team. He's a fantastic guy. And then just to see that, that email, read that, it was just like, every player makes enough money where if they want to invest in the neighborhood, they can do that. It's just, there's a couple things at play here in my mind. We've all kind of had this, and I don't know about you guys, but my circle has had this feeling around the game where you almost feel like it's the one game that guys play that they really don't want to play. There's if it's raining, hey, let's just bang this and go home. We'll pick it up. We don't want to play a doubleheader. Whatever. It's like I see all the guys from the other sports, and I'm generalizing, but it's like, hey, LeBron James, like, hey, I'm ready to play some basketball. The hockey guys can't wait to get out there. Like the baseball guys, I look at their Twitters and some of their stuff, and it's like they're on their yachts and they're in their mansions, and it's like, they're enjoying this amazing lavish life that they got from playing baseball, but they don't even want to play the game. Not everyone, but enough where it's like, look, man, we're just trying to pay our bills at the end of the day. Like a lot of us, 40 million of us are out of work. And you guys are like, you're complaining about double headers. You're talking about the pay cut you're going to take this year when you made like, $30 million last year. I mean, you would rather take like from the guy who's like making league minimum and not take take the pay cut yourself. Like it's about sacrificing, but the union doesn't want to give up any leverage right now. And I get that part of it too. Would I trust Rob Manfred? No. But at the same time, I just think that they need to get together on the same page and go out there and play this game. I listened to an interview on Mad Dog Radio, and you talk about trying to find your sources to kind of get like a grasp of, of what's going on. And it's like, I done a really nice job of players, who are players. He had Mark Reynolds on there, and Mark's talking about, well, this player, Trevor Story, rented out a building to go work out, and he's the hardest worker I've ever seen, and all this stuff. My dad was a construction worker. Like he had to be out at the job site at like 5 a.m. when it was like 10 below. Like, don't tell me about how hard this guy's working to throw a baseball. Like, you live the American dream. You live really the world dream, right? You're getting paid millions of dollars to throw a baseball and run. Like sometimes I feel like we lose like this, like the reality of what the situation is. Like we're all lucky that we get to be a part of the game. And at the end of the day, this is happening because the most important element of baseball are the fans, and the fans aren't allowed in there, whether it's the money that they're spending, the passion that they bring, the love and attention that they give. And I don't feel like any of this ever reflects back on how important the people are to this entire experience. So it's disheartening sometimes when you hear that. I respect Mark for coming on and being honest, and giving that interview. But at the same time, it just kind of left me. And then you would kind of build off of that. You hear Jeff Passan doing an interview, and you hear this, other people that are around the game, and they're kind of echoing that, hey, look, this is kind of where they are right now. I try to say to myself, okay, maybe this is just, posturing for negotiations. And I mean, look, the only way you can win a negotiation, we know, is to walk away from it all, right? But there's this other part where I'm going, it's playing the game. It's a game. One thing we found out is that the sun's going to come up whether we got a baseball game to watch this summer or not, right? So I just wish that the mentality on both sides, the players and the owners, and management, would be that we need to do everything we can to give the fans a good product and to bring the game back. But I don't feel like that's the case at all.
It's an interesting thing. I forget who the player was, but there was a player who said, every time we try to treat it like a business, we get told treat it like a game. And every time we try to treat it like a game, we get told treat it like a business. That it's a game that has so many millions and billions of dollars behind it, and so many people affected by it. So a player sitting back at home and working on his form, working on his mechanics, whether it's his throwing motion, his swing, and there's all of us sitting back. I do still have my job with the Lugnuts, but I, just like so many others, have taken a pay cut. We are all affected by our current circumstances of our country and the way that the economy is. And because coronavirus has shut sports down, specifically baseball that we're talking about, but with the economy, with the disease and the precautions that need to be taken, everything going into it, there are so many more eyes on these baseball negotiations, because baseball is the sport that we expect to come back before the others, that we expect to take the lead rather than a basketball tournament.
Well, what if you said to the Lugnuts, like, I'm not taking a pay cut?
What would happen is they would find somebody else to do my job.
Right. That's my point. Like, it's like, you can't tell them that. I couldn't tell them I couldn't tell any of my employers, like, hey, you know what? I'm not doing that. And I took an enormous pay cut, more than half.
There are people lining up
and got furloughed. Now, I'm not even getting paid by the team, so it's like, but I understand that that's the situation that we're in right now, like, yeah, you got contracts if you're a player, but it's based on people being able to go to the games. It's not like there's not any money there. It's just not the same, and it's a 1 year thing. I mean, we'll be back to normal next year. I mean, it's kind of starting to feel like it's moving that way now, but I guess where my warning comes is, well, first off, all right, the thing that bothered me the most is, what does Tom Ricketts investing in the neighborhood around Wrigley, building businesses around the stadium, have to do with player contracts? I just didn't see the parallel there. I just didn't. Okay.
The answer for that is simply Scott Boras, the guy calling it out, saying that was helping to raise the value of the Chicago Cubs.
Right. But the value's based off of like a number, like he's talking about billions of dollars. Like the net worth of the team is there, but that's only if you sell the team. You don't have $1 billion sitting in the bank account that you just reach into and divvy out. Like what basically what it is when you sell the team, that's the money that you make. But you manage your all of your stuff based off of the games and the revenues that you bring in from the games, whether that's TV, game day tickets, corporate sales, all that stuff, right? And I don't feel like, and this goes back not just to that conversation, but just conversations that I've had with general presidents of teams, whether it be minor league or major league teams too, about this misunderstanding about how much money that is available out there. Like like there's not an endless pot of money, you know, and it's like you take half of what you have and you're paying all these salaries, but it's based on people showing up to the game. So if you don't have games with people, you're not making that same amount of money, you know. I don't know. Like I just look at it and I'm like, if they don't play baseball this year, the backlash that they're going to have is probably going to be justified. And 50 games, I guess, is better than no games. But that seems like like a college softball league to me. I mean, they could be doing a lot better than that. They don't want to play double headers. You know, look, baseball was built on double headers. I mean, Kevin, you remember the day when, you know, every Sunday you had a double header. Most weekends you had a double header. You know, Satchel Paige and those guys played like, you know, double headers all week long. You know, so I just don't look at it as like one of these things where we can't play this game. You know, like it has to be 50 games. But I'm glad that at least, because last week I'm looking at it and going, we're probably not going to have baseball. You know, at least I feel like it's kind of moving towards something. But just as a fan of the game, I mean, forget the professional part of it. Every time I turn around, something else is happening where I'm just going, you got to be kidding me. You know, whether it's cheating with the World Series teams, whether it's the juice baseball, we're going to get rid of minor league teams. We're cutting the draft back. We're slotting the draft. Like, and now we're like trying to celebrate 50 games.
Yeah, it's better. It's better than nothing. I mean, if you're looking at like MLS is looking at all its games in Orlando this season in a tournament with no home play whatsoever. So it's all for the cameras. It's still in recognition that there's still a coronavirus pandemic. You know, I live in a state where positive cases keep rising, hospitalizations keep rising. Luckily, percentage of positive tests seem to be going down, which is a good thing as we expand testing. But, you know, everyone kind of assumes we can just walk away from the pandemic, and we really can't. Teams are being very extra cautious in how they're approaching things, planning for play without fans. And I think that'll be now all season. I don't see a scenario where you see fans at a World Series. You know, I think we're going to see a uptick again in diagnosed cases, even as we expand testing, thanks to, you know, the scenes we saw this weekend of fans congregating in bars and in pools and whatnot. So, you know, everyone wants to be rid of it, but we're not going to be rid of it. And this landscape's going to change. It's going to change for next year too. NFL knows it won't have full crowds this season. They're already planning for 50% capacity at the end, not at the beginning. So across the sports world, we are looking at dramatically changed circumstances for the next year.
5 months down, June 1st, June 2nd. Hey, 2020, what a winner.
What a great year this has been. So let's change the subject a little bit and let's talk some real baseball. To sort of bridge our way into our readers' good graces here.
Would you like to talk a baseball term, perhaps?
Yes, baseball term would be great.
Have either of you ever heard the term when a pitcher gets knocked out of the game, that the pitcher has been knocked out of the box?
Yes.
Yeah.
Where does the term the pitcher's box come from? That's what I've got saved up for this week.
Tell us, Jess.
Right, because the pitcher doesn't work in a box right now. There's no box on the mound. When pitchers first started, they put chalk parallel lines, and the pitcher would have to stand inside those lines, a box like the batter's box. So the pitcher would throw from the pitcher's box into the batter in the batter's box. But pitchers, of course, cheated. So what they would do was they'd rub out the chalk line, same thing as you might see a batter do, and then they'd cross in front and they'd be throwing pitches from in closer than that. So what was the solution? Well, canny teams started to put stones in front of that front line of the box. Very slippery stones, sometimes marble, a slab, if you were. And so if a pitcher stepped in front, number one, his spikes would hit that slab, it'd mark it up, you could immediately catch him in the act. Number two, he would fall down. So you'd have pitchers taking that extra little step, slipping. The pitches would go wild. You'd catch them right there. They put glass because glass was super slippery. They'd figure out all sorts of different things. And as they were going from glass to marble, they discovered, why not rubber? And they put a rubber slab, the pitcher's rubber, in there, replacing the pitcher's box. And that is why we say a pitcher gets knocked out of the box, even though now we've got a pitcher has to work from that rubber slab.
Great stuff. That's why I love your book. It's always good to find out those like sayings that we have, you know. Every time I think about like the chalk boxes, I think of Carl Everett. You remember Carl Everett with the Red Sox? He kept on stepping. He was infamous for not batting in the chalk box. He would dig it out. He got in trouble for it.
I would love to see every single game, which batter is it who's going to obliterate that batter's box first? And sometimes it's the catcher who goes over in the top of the first inning, the bottom of the first inning, takes a mitt and just sweeps it all away because the catcher's got the catcher's box and they don't want to be kept in that either.
Oh, that's a great approach. Everyone, there's so many micro-cheating instances popping up, aren't there?
Oh, man. The things that we think about in terms of the big things, from banging on trash cans or wearing a wire or corking your bat, where you stand in the batter's box or the catcher's box. There have been catchers caught for having 1 foot outside the box, especially, let's say, for a pitch out. There have been batters caught for stepping outside the batter's box because guys like to run up to hit breaking balls. And then think about the pitchers who've been caught not actually working off the pitcher's rubber from getting that little bit closer of that jump. There was a minor leaguer named Patrick Murphy last year who his mechanics revolved around an extra toe tap. Mick, I don't know if you've seen the pitchers who've had mechanics ruled illegal, but he was told little extra toe tap, he couldn't do that. And that took him from being a great prospect pitcher into being ineffective.
Yeah, C.J. Edwards, Carl Edwards Jr. with the Cubs a couple of springs ago. He tried to change his mechanics, and he got to spring training, and Jim DeShays was like, I don't think that's legal. And they started calling it, and eventually he struggled mightily and was traded to the Padres, and I don't know where he is right now, but he was a great late-inning reliever for the Cubs, helped them win the World Series. And, you know, and then CJ was ineffective because his pitches were illegal, and he never really found that rhythm that you have to pitch after that.
Stunning.
What did he do to cause that? What did he change?
He was trying to emulate Kenley Jansen of the Dodgers. You know, he was trying to find more consistency with his location. And it was like there was just this pause thing he was doing. And I just remember JD said to me, he's like, and Len and I and JD were sitting in the booth. He's like, it just doesn't look right to me. But they didn't call it in that spring training game. So you go further down the line and they start calling it, regular season comes and it's illegal. You know, so it was like you said, it was like just kind of like this thing with his feet. You know, I'm not a pitching coach, but it did look just a little bit off. And it was enough where it's like if you, I guess the way that you come set, you can't come set twice maybe. I don't know, but it was something like that. And he was trying to pause like Kenley Jansen does, you know, like, and he just, but it wasn't the same.
You can hear guys shouting out from dugouts if they think that something is wrong with the pitcher, if the pitcher's not coming to a complete stop, whatever it might be. With that CJ Edwards, I would have to think that's going right up to the head umpiring office, where there are people grouping around the video and each one of them pausing, starting it, playing it in super slow, saying, what are we thinking? Look at this. And for a mechanic to be ruled illegal.
I remember pitching and being in games and people yelling out at the dugout like that I balked on a pickoff move or something, you know, like being in the middle of a game and I'm pitching, I'm trying to concentrate. And I didn't, but they just would do that. Or maybe they look like it was, but I'm right-handed. So it's not, you know, it's pretty easy to spot, you know. The left-handers, they have a big advantage on pickoff moves, right? With the balk move that they're able to to kind of throw over there. And a lot of them do balk when they throw to first, but if they just don't call it, depending on the angle or whatever, where their feet and body are and shoulders. But I remember, like, you talk about being, the people yelling from the dugouts, like, ah! And then you're out there and you're thinking, then you start thinking, you're like, man, am I balking? Is this something? And then all of a sudden the next guy hits like a double off the wall or something, it's a tactic too, to disrupt your rhythm when you're pitching a good game, and got people yell out from the dugout, but everyone's an umpire.
It's fascinating. And we can't talk to people about their mechanics because there is that danger that we could be bringing something up to put something in their mind. Just coming to my mind, there was a batter for the Lugnuts. Well, I noticed that there was something really unusual that he was doing with his swing and his load in the cage. And I mentioned this to him, and he said,
boy.
I'm doing what? And he started second guessing himself, and I'm going, no, don't. It's like telling someone, hey, don't think about your tongue.
Yeah, and that's something that we you kind of go through that one time as a broadcaster, and then you just stay away from it. The guys are so superstitious. You're like, oh man, you did you realize you had? We had a guy, Tyler Colvin. He had like 10 or 11 straight hits, which is like I think like a tie to league record or something. I'm like, hey man, like that, amazing. You just tied the league record with 11 straight at bats with a hit. Like, what? I didn't know that. Like, it's like, well, it's okay, man. Like, congratulations. Like, I don't want to know anything like that, like.
Because now it's on their mind. There's a scientific principle that you can't study something without affecting it. And that's us. We're affecting things. Things need to take place in a vacuum.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So
Gentlemen.
Colvin do next at bat. Did you jinx him?
I can't remember. I think he got out. He was a great guy, man. Great sport, Like, I'll say this. There's, every draft is different. Every team that you deal with is a little bit different. There's just some teams that, for whatever reason, they mesh. You fit in with them. Everyone gets along. And Tyler Colvin was one of those guys for me. I look back at him and just think, like, what a great person. Andrew Kashner was on some of those teams. Blake Lally, who's a minor league manager now. Darwin Barney, who's a minor league manager. Like, you just get around these guys. Russ Kanzler. And it's like you show up every day and you feel like you can't wait to go in the clubhouse and talk to everybody about what the TV series is right now, or what happened in last night's game, or what they think about, this situation. And then there's other teams, Jesse, and this, where you don't want to be around those guys at all.
Nope.
They're miserable. If there's one drop of rain, they don't want to play baseball. The team that you work for can't do enough for them. They always have a gripe. A lot of times it has to do with their manager too. Like, if you get a manager in the minor leagues who's selfish, it reflects on the players. If you get a guy that's a hard worker, that reflects on the players, and part of their personality too. But there are just certain teams that you'll work with, which I didn't know when I started this, because I had such great teams my first few years, that as I've gotten older, I've been like, I was so spoiled. And when I think of Colvin, that's what I think of, like just laughing and sitting there talking baseball with him, and college baseball. He went to Clemson, like living it up and doing it like that. I think I might have messed up his hitting streak. I don't know, but he didn't hold it against me, thank God.
It's the pitchers in the dugout throwing the no-hitter or throwing the perfect game, and the teammates all ignoring them. And one of the great things is, does the pitcher know that he's throwing a no-hitter or perfect game? Because
Do you say it?
On the air? Yes.
Yeah. You do?
Yes.
Would you say it, Kevin?
Well, didn't Vin Scully start saying it at one point in his career, saying, they can't hear me anyway? What difference does it make?
Yeah.
Right.
What I've learned is they will find out after the fact. And so if I say no-hitter and then the no-hitter gets broken up, I will get blamed. But my response to them is, I have called 5 no-hitters in my broadcast career.
Whoa.
So I think that I'm not a jinx.
Yeah.
So in that case, it's them that ruined their no-hitter and not me.
Well, see, there's two really distinct thought processes on this. And it goes back to the first 2 Hall of Fame broadcasters, Red Barber and Mel Allen. Mel Allen, former voice of the Yankees, This Week in Baseball, Alabama grad. He said, I'm going to do it like the players in the dugout. If they're not going to go mentioning it, I'm not going to mention it. But I'm going to hint about it, you know. So I'm going to play it like I'm one of the guys. So I may say, hey, you may want to stick around and give the line score, but never say no hitter. But the other guy who got into the Hall of Fame with him was a guy named Red Barber, right? From Mississippi, went to the University of Florida, the voice of the Dodgers, more of a reporter type, trained Ben, and he said, I'm a reporter. I got to say it's a no-hitter. I got to tell him it's a no-hitter. Me, I'm going to do it the opposite of you, Jesse. I'm the Mel Allen type, you know. I'm going to give you a lot of subtle hints that you need to stick around, but I'm not going to say the word no-hitter. And it's because I don't want to jinx those guys, because you're right. They're going to be looking
They will
for
get
me.
mad. They will
They're
find
looking for
you.
me.
Their
And they
family
love
will
it.
find you.
Right. They love you for not saying it. Like they feel like I'll go down there and they're like, Mick, did you say it? And I'm like, no. And they're like, high five. I said I hinted, but I didn't say it. Now, if it's the other team throwing a no-hitter.
Oh, come now. Yeah. It's a no-hitter, 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 no-hitter.
No hits through 6. I'm going to jinx you.
There was an angry email sent out early in my Lugnuts broadcast career to the Dayton Dragons owner, the Dayton Dragons team president, the Lugnuts owner, the Lugnuts general manager, and me, accusing me of jinxing a no-hitter in the 5th inning.
Yeah.
They said, I will have you know, this broadcaster for the Lugnuts clearly does not know baseball because he used the words no-hitter in the 5th inning.
Guilty.
If I use it in the 5th inning, that's not because it's a no-hitter. That's me being funny. It's not really a no-hitter until the 6th or the 7th.
Right. So you say 6th or 7th? Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
5 innings of no hits isn't anything yet. Let's get deeper into the game. Let's have more. The batters need a chance to come around the 2nd time and especially the 3rd time through.
Well, the other part of it too is for us, and when you're in the minor leagues, like the guy that's pitching might not even be there. He might leave in the 7th with no hits. You know, it's like you got to. There has to be. It's got to be the right organization. Like I'll say this: like the Cubs don't let their guys pitch, and I hope that changes. We don't know, but they revamped a lot of stuff in the minor league system this year, and I was really excited to see if they were going to take the training wheels off, because they haven't developed a starter. And I feel like one of the reasons why is that everybody's riding around with those 2 extra little wheels on the back of their bike, you know? Like when you play the Braves, you know, the White Sox are really good in the Southern League at developing pitching. And the reason why is that they let the guys go out and pitch, you know? So you're going to get, you know, 114, 120 pitches to get it done if you're with those organizations. I mean, unless you're maybe like if you're stretched out, let's say that, right? So, you know, like if you get close, you got a chance to get it. But with the Cubs, like you get a guy, if you're pitching 5 innings, you're pitching 5 innings. You could strike every single person out to the 5th, and you might get to pitch a couple guys in the 6th, but they're taking you out. At least that's the way it's been. And so I never get that excited over no-hitters because I just don't think we're ever going to have one.
By the way, if you want to see a manager and a pitching coach look stressed out, it's for a manager and a pitching coach on a team where they let their pitcher go. And now it's the 9th inning, and there's 1 out down and 2 outs to go, and that pitcher's pitch count is right at the threshold. And they're going, please get a 1 pitch out. Please don't foul off a pitch.
You're so right. You are so right. And they should be stressed out because there's always a lot of finger pointing if someone gets hurt, you know, and that's the tough part about it. I mean, like, and I get it. Like, I'm not, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again, I think you let them play. But also, I'm not the one that's got to answer to, to Theo or whoever else if someone gets hurt. But that's a risk that you take every time you put a uniform on and play any game. Like I just got finished a 3.5 mile jog. I could have twisted my ankle. It's just life, right? I mean, it's a risk you take, except I'm not worth, millions of dollars.
You're not a $1 million asset there.
No.
There's always the worst
Hardly.
example that people bring up, though. Like with the home run derby ruining swing, someone's going to be like, Bobby Abreu. With this, someone's going to be like, hey, Johan Santana.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you talk about home run derbies too. It reminds me of Chris Bryant being in the home run derby, and it wasn't a swing. It was just he said it was stressful.
Yeah,
I suppose. But you look at the best participants of these derbies. They're fluid. They come up there with the same exact swing every time. It's like watching an NBA 3-point contest. Larry Bird, same form every time. Del Curry, barely moved a muscle between the shots.
Oh, Larry Bird was the best.
Home run derby.
Yeah. All right. Who's your favorite? Let me say this, not favorite. Who's the best home run derby contestant you ever remember? Kevin.
Boy. I think you go first, Jesse. I got to think about
Jesse.
This.
Josh Hamilton.
Boom. Josh Hamilton. Hands down. That's what I was going to say. Kevin.
Oh, I enjoyed watching Brian Harper, to be honest. I mean, talk about a mechanical swing that never really varied from pitch to pitch. But I would have liked to see some of the old guys in a real home run derby versus the 1960s show. The guys who were more lungers with the ball, the Harmon Killebrews, even go back to the old timers, the Hack Wilsons, those guys whose form kind of sucked, but they just sheer overpowering the ball. That would be fun to go back in time to see. These guys who are so trained these days, the home run derby kind of seems a little, it's mechanized in a way. These guys never vary their swings.
It would have been a great time to do like a show like Home Run Derby. I don't know that you could have gotten the star players, but some players would have done it. It probably been like rookies because they would have wanted to make the money, maybe some minor leaguers. But there's nothing on TV. I mean, we watched that Tiger, Phil, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady golf tournament thing. It was terrible. But we watched
terrible golf.
But it's like we are starved right now. We'll watch this. Like, hey, look, I'll watch the minor league home run king go up against some guy who's a rookie that can hit and needs extra cash right now. I mean, I don't need to have Bryce Harper against Chris Bryant to have a good home run derby show. I don't think.
Well, hang on. The old school, the 1960s home run derby at Wrigley Field in Los Angeles. I own those DVDs. You can watch them on YouTube. Mickey Mantle against Willie Mays, and it's great.
Yeah, I know. I used to watch them when they came back on, like when I was a kid. And
it's been classic.
Like that Wrigley Field, it was like a smaller version of the Wrigley Field that we have in Chicago. And it was so cool, watching that. Every time I see that stadium, though, I think of Herman Munster. You guys remember when Herman Munster was playing baseball? Do you ever watch that show, The Munsters? No?
I do remember that, yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, he threw the ball about.
They would speed up some things to make him run faster, They would speed up film.
Yeah, right. He let me just put it like this. He could throw the ball like a mile, literally.
That was the point, yes.
On the subject of Wrigley Field home run derbies, do either of you two remember the 1990 Major League Baseball All-Star Game home run derby?
No.
Mick.
Rhino, right? Wasn't Rhino in that one?
He sure was. He won it. He was the champion. Okay.
Was he the first guy? I remember that.
That's my favorite home run derby in All-Star Game history. Ryan Sandberg out-homered everybody else combined, and he hit 3 home runs.
Yeah.
Here are the numbers. Darryl Strawberry, 0. Ken Griffey Jr., 0. Cecil Fielder, 0. Jose Canseco, Bobby Bonilla, Matt Williams, and Mark McGuire at Wrigley Field because if you're hitting at Wrigley Field on the wrong day, you can't hit a home run.
Got to hit line drive. Got to hit line drive. And that's what Rhino did so well.
Well, when you list all those guys, I would think you could say Rhino was the most disciplined hitter of them all at the time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which meant you had to hit the line drive. I mean, Canseco would have gone up there and just flailed.
Yeah,
with little technique who are just going to overpower the ball.
All right, guys. Rhino note, and then I want to jump in one more time with a question for you guys. Rhino was manager of the Smokies. He gave me his fungo bat when at the end of the season, we lost in the playoffs. He signed his fungo bat where the tape is on the fungo bat, and it's probably my most prized memorabilia possession because he gave it to me. He told me weeks before. He's like, hey, look, I want you to have this, right? So we used to talk a lot during BP. What's your most prized baseball memorabilia that someone gave you?
I don't actually have a lot of memorabilia. I got to say, I'm not a memorabilia guy, to be totally honest.
We have a new general manager with the Lansing Lugnuts named Tyler Parsons. And the very first day on the job that he was here, you know him, Kevin, you know him. He joins the Lugnuts. I walk into the office. There he is our new GM. He hands me an Ernie Harwell autographed bobblehead, and I keep it on my bookshelf. So that gift from TP, that means a lot to me.
Oh, that is a great gift. I'm jealous. You want a bat?
Yeah, I would take that too. This is not purely baseball. Well, actually, it's not at all baseball. But my prized possession that was handed to me in that situation was back in my prior life working in the tech industry. There was a big concert in Las Vegas with B.B. King.
Oh,
it was going to be the first streamed concert ever. Well, as you can imagine, it was a disaster. But we didn't know it at the time because we were next in the stage, and I was standing next to B.B. King for a good half hour, literally next to him while he played the live concert. When he gets done, he turns, hands me his pick, and says, "Have a good day, son."
Wow, that is cool. I use B.B. King's a couple of his songs, his riffs for bed music.
It was a fantastic concert. Too bad the world didn't see it because the streaming servers crashed in about 2 minutes.
Hey, but guess what? These days, that's the only concerts that we get. And I got a memo yesterday that Michael McDonald's doing a concert 7:30 on June 4th. Just FYI for anyone out there.
Yeah, there have been some good concerts. Did either one of you catch the Fenway Park one last Friday? Dropkick Murphys and Bruce Springsteen on the infield?
No, I didn't see that one. I've been watching a lot of the Grateful Dead ones.
I mean, it wasn't publicized very well at all, and it was good. I mean, these concerts that are streamed all sort of have the same energy, and because there's no crowd to work off of, everything seems very even, and that's why I wonder how baseball will be once it comes back with no fans. Because this concert, it had the checklist. It was the first one in the infield at Fenway Park. It had Dropkick Murphys. It had Bruce Springsteen, and it was good, but something was missing, and I wonder if we're not going to see that when baseball returns.
Did you guys watch John Fogerty do his center field song from center field at Dodger Stadium?
Took him 75 years. He said he's 75 years old, and first time he got to do that.
That's awesome.
It was great.
I have a good friend who's a singer-songwriter, so it's just him. And so he's been every Sunday doing concerts from, as he calls it, quote unquote, his water-damaged basement. And it's great and intimate, and tons of people show up because he's made a name for himself touring all around the world. And so people give requests, people ask questions. He brings in fellow singer-songwriters for brief interviews to promote their stuff. So that kind of intimate coffee shop nature worked really well.
Yeah, that's where you want to zoom in and get close, get the good sound, and that's part of being outside too. The sound was good, but it wasn't coffee shop quality sound.
Well, we'll see what the baseball season is. We'll see how things continue on with the negotiations, and a week from tomorrow, we'll have a Major League Baseball draft to look forward to. But on this note, and thinking of B.B. King's pick that is in your possession, Kevin Reichard, For Kevin, Mick Gillispie, big thanks. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler. This is the Ballpark Digest Broadcaster Chat. Go to ballparkdigest.com. Until next week.
Thank you.